No one dared speak to the billionaire's father. Not the executives who bowed their heads as he passed. Not the lawyers who had built empires with his signature. Not even his own son, whose fortune rested on a lifetime of obedience and fear. The old man sat in his wheelchair by the tall glass windows of the villa, staring at the sea as if it owed him something. His body was still powerful in shape, but his silence carried a weight heavier than anger. He had not spoken in months. Not a word, not a breath of acknowledgement. Doctors called it selective mutism. Psychologists whispered about trauma, pride, and control. The staff simply called it hopeless. The billionaire heir, his son, stood behind him every morning, every evening, saying the same careful sentences into the void. "Good morning, father. The weather is calm today. We finalized the merger." Silence answered every time. Then she arrived. She wasn't important. At least, not on paper. She was hired through a third-party agency to assist with the estate's language archives, old documents written in regional Italian dialects. Temporary. Replaceable. Invisible. That's what she thought she was. She didn't know that the house itself had been holding its breath, waiting for one sound. One word. One crack in the wall of silence. She entered the villa quietly on her first day, aware of where she stood. Marble floors reflected chandeliers shaped like frozen fire. Portraits of men who never smiled lined the walls. Power lived here, and it didn't welcome softness. She kept her eyes down, her posture respectful. But inside her chest, something trembled, not fear. Memory. She passed the old man's room every morning. She never looked in. She never asked questions. She had learned long ago that some silences were not meant to be challenged. Until that afternoon, the house was unusually quiet. No meetings, no footsteps, no voices, just the sea pressing against the cliffs like it was trying to speak. She was carrying a stack of yellowed letters when she noticed the door was open. The billionaire's father sat alone. His eyes were open, not staring at the sea this time. Staring at her. She froze. Everyone knew the rules. Do not disturb him. Do not address him. Do not expect anything. She should have backed away. But something in his eyes stopped her. It wasn't rage. It wasn't arrogance. It was grief, so old and deep it had become part of his bones. Her hands tightened around the papers. "I'm sorry," she said softly, already stepping back. His gaze didn't break. She hesitated. The room smelled faintly of leather and medicine. The walls were lined with awards, photographs, framed contracts, proof of a man who had ruled the world with his voice. And lost it. She didn't know why she spoke next. She would later replay this moment 1,000 times, never finding the answer. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was mercy. Maybe it was fate finally clearing its throat. She looked at him and said one word. Just one. "Papa." The sound landed like thunder in a sealed room. The staff outside didn't hear it. The guards didn't react. The world didn't stop. But the old man's hand moved. Slow. Shaking. His fingers clenched against the armrest. His lips parted. Air left his lungs like he had been drowning. And then, so quietly it almost didn't exist, he whispered back. "Figlia. Daughter." The silence shattered. The word did not echo. It sank. It fell into the room like a stone dropped into deep water, and for a moment no one breathed, not even her. She stood there with the letters pressed to her chest, stunned by the sound of his voice, stunned by the way a single syllable had reopened a door sealed by years. "Figlia," he had said. "Daughter." The old man's eyes glistened, not with weakness but with recognition. As if he had finally found the right face to remember. As if time, cruel and patient, had loosened its grip just enough to let him step through. She swallowed. I'm sorry," she whispered again, because apology felt safer than wonder. "I didn't mean." He lifted one finger. A command, once absolute, now fragile. But it stopped her all the same. "Stay," he said. The word came rough, scraped raw by disuse. It hurt him to speak. She could hear it. Each sound seemed to cost him something precious. She stayed. Outside the door, the sea continued its endless argument with the rocks. Inside, a man who had commanded nations tried to find his way back to himself. "Do you know," he asked, eyes fixed on the far horizon, "how loud silence becomes when it decides to live with you?" She shook her head. She had known silence, of kitchens where no one asked how she was, of rooms where love arrived late and left early, but this was different. This was the silence of a throne abandoned by its king. I chose it, he continued. I thought I could punish the world by withdrawing my voice. Thought I could teach them what absence feels like. His mouth curved into something that might have been a smile, might have been regret. But silence does not punish the guilty. It feeds on the living. He turned to her again. You spoke like my wife used to speak. Soft, certain, like names mattered. Her breath caught. She did not ask about the wife. She sensed the edge of a wound and knew better than to press. I'm not your daughter, she said gently. He nodded. No, but you remembered the word. Footsteps hurried down the hall. The door flew open. His son stood there, immaculate suit, controlled expression cracking at the seams. Father, he said, disbelief trembling in the single syllable. He had not heard that voice in so long he barely trusted it. The old man looked at him. Looked truly at him, and for the first time in years, did not look through him. She spoke, he said simply. So I answered. The son's eyes moved to her, sharp with questions, fear, and something dangerously close to hope. What did you say? She hesitated, then told the truth. One word. What word? She met the old man's gaze, seeking permission. He nodded. Papa. The son closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were wet. He hasn't answered anyone, he said quietly. Not doctors. Not priests. Not me. The old man reached for the armrest again, grounding himself. You were speaking to the man I used to be, he said to his son. She spoke to the one who still remembers. That night, the house changed its breathing. The staff moved differently, slower, softer, as if afraid to disturb something newly alive. The son ordered dinner brought to the old man's room for the first time in months. He asked her to stay, not as an employee, but as a presence. As a bridge. She sat by the window while the old man ate, barely touching her own plate. He spoke in fragments, memories half-formed, names that trembled on his tongue, regrets that tasted bitter even after years of silence. She listened, offering nothing but attention, the rarest currency of all. At one point, he asked, why did you say it? She considered the question carefully. Because, she said, some words are doors. And I thought, maybe you were standing on the other side. He laughed then, a short, broken sound that startled even him. Brave, he murmured, or foolish. Sometimes, she said, they look the same. Days passed, then weeks. The old man spoke more. Not much, but enough. Enough to change the shape of the days. Enough to remind the house that a voice, once returned, demands to be used with care. The son watched it all unfold with quiet awe. And with something else, an unease he could not name. Because in giving his father a voice, she had shifted the balance of the world he thought he controlled. One evening, as the sun bled into the sea, the old man took her hand. Stay, he said again. This time it was not a command. It was a request. She did not answer right away. Because she felt it then, the weight of what she had stepped into. The inheritance of memory. The danger of becoming necessary. The cost of being the one who is heard. Outside, the sea kept speaking. And somewhere between its endless murmuring and the man's fragile voice, she realized the truth. One word had not only broken his silence. It had bound her fate to a family built on power, loss, and the fragile hope that even the hardest hearts might still remember how to listen.